lot of people are angry with our government today. A recent Rasmussen poll on Angry America shows that 67% of the people are angry with the federal government. 84% are angry with Congress. 57% are angry with the large corporations. Well, let's piss you off some more. Every time tax time comes around, it makes me very angry. Why? Because I've researched the income tax and have found that the damn thing has been perverted to enslave the people and the media, the press, the politicians, the church leaders, and all the rest of the sorry damn bunch that feeds our minds dares not tell the people the truth. But the truth is that when the income tax started with the 16th Amendment in 1913, the exemption rate was 8 times the average yearly earnings of the typical American worker. The income tax was sold to the people as a tax upon the accumulated wealth in the hands of the few. And the truth is, for 23 years after the income tax started, less than 3% of the people paid income tax. The income tax was not sold to the people as a tax upon the wages of working people. In fact, in a Saturday Evening Post editorial from March 31st, 1934, let's read this. By income taxes, we strive to redress the balance and at the same time make the builders of great fortunes pay proper toll to the society which has made their success possible. Wow, aren't you happy to know you're the builder of a great fortune? Let's all take a lavish vacation somewhere and party. Y'all in? So what the hell happened that perverted the income tax? Answer, Social Security in 1935. This was the first law in the nation's history where the federal government began taxing the wages of working people. The tax began at 1% of wages in 1937. Now look at it. Today the politicians look at your labor or your wages as their property to plunder with absolutely no restraints to any levels they desire. Even the Supreme Court of the United States has been very careful to dodge ruling on the constitutionality of taxing wages, and to this day they haven't ruled on it. But back in 1991 they did rule there were serious constitutional questions involved when it comes to taxing wages, but wouldn't say what those serious constitutional questions were. Do you smell a rat? They're slavery questions, people. Whoever can use the force of law to determine your allowance from your wages is your master, and you are that person's slave. Abraham Lincoln would have told you that. George Washington would have told you that. Thomas Jefferson would have told you that. Frederick Douglass would have told you that. Anybody in Congress from back in Civil War times would have told you that. Representative Donnelly on the floor of the House of Representatives on February 1st, 1866 said, "Slavery consists in a deprivation of natural rights. A man may be a slave for a term of years as fully as though he were held for life. He may be a slave when deprived of a portion of the wages of his labor as fully as if deprived of all. He may be held down by unjust laws to a degraded and defenseless condition as fully as though his wrists were manacled. He may be oppressed by a convocation of masters called a legislature as fully as by a single master. In short, he who is not entirely free is necessarily a slave." Now, if we could bring back Representative Donnelly, I wonder what he'd think about our tax system we have today. But today, when they take your wages away, it's freedom. And look at all the commercials on TV. Why, there's plenty of companies out there who want your business. helping you with filing and paying your income taxes. H&R Block is giving away $1,000 a day. Intuit TurboTax makes it easy for you. Jackson Hewitt is there to help you too. And a host of other tax preparation companies. They make billions and billions and billions of dollars every year off the great labor feast that plunders the wages of the people. Now we see why emancipating slaves is such a difficult thing. Do you think that the tax preparation companies want to lose their billions and billions and billions of dollars in profits every year? Do you think the politicians want to lose the trillions of dollars they rake in from feasting on our labor? Like old Abe Lincoln said when he was running for president in 1860, the enormous pecuniary interest in the labor of millions and millions of people influences the minds of those in power. The biggest mistake the people can make is giving the politicians a blank check to rob you of your labor or wages, and the people have done just that. This institution of slavery we live under today has taken such deep root that today the people in power lay claim to the labor of our children at birth by assigning them taxpayer identification numbers. Like Senator James Harlan said on the floor of the Senate on April 6, 1864, during the debates on the 13th Amendment, according to our ideas of justice, it would be wrong to punish a child for the crimes of his father. It would be very cruel to visit upon the offspring the misfortune of the parent. We are told by the divine writer that the saying should no longer be maintained in Israel, that the fathers have eaten sour grapes, and that the children's teeth are set on edge. Whence, then, the origin of the slaveholder's title to the services of the slave's children? Here is the only answer that can be given. Partus sequitur ventrum. This is the whole title, the title deed. The offspring follows the condition of the mother. Ah, yes, the old slave maxim, partus sequitur ventrum, applies again to the system we live in, where the slavery that's being imposed upon the mother is passed on to her children and all future generations unless the people rise up and emancipate themselves from their masters. You see, as I've already told you, the income tax was never intended to tax labor or wages, but now it's been perverted to do so on a massive scale, and the people have been mentally conditioned to accept it. So, since mommy's wages are taxed and garnished if she's disobedient to her masters, her child will follow her condition. Kind of makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, don't it? Now, back in 2000, when I ran for Congress in my district, I naively believed that if the people were told the truth about what the politicians had done to them, they would rise up and vote the slave power out of office. I was wrong. A lifetime of brainwashing is very difficult to overcome. So here we are today, and it's only gotten worse. The national debt in 2000 was around 5.5 trillion. Today it's around 19 trillion and will be around 21 trillion by the time our Muslim president leaves office. Both liberals and conservatives have done this to us. So, since both liberal and conservative politicians have worked together to enslave us, why in the hell would I want to be either one? Of course, as far as the conservatives go, there probably are true conservatives and false ones. But since I stand for emancipation, I think I'll just be an abolitionist instead. An advocate for restoring the right to free labor to the American people, where forcing servitude upon people must conform to the due process of the 13th Amendment, and that is punishment for crime after conviction. And if some politicians think an exception to that rule is necessary, then clarify the exception by amending the Constitution. Enough of this feasting upon the labor of the people using arbitrary law. An institution of slavery I simply call labor cannibalism. You see, the term abolitionist cannot be misunderstood. People know what it means. And since it's tax time, I thought it was fitting to make this video as a reminder that we had a civil war in this country over slavery. And I think we have an obligation to honor those who gave their lives, that the right to free labor would be a right to all working people, irregardless of the color of their skin, and they would have that for all future generations, unless the Constitution was amended to change things. And this has never been done. The politicians who are liberal and conservative have lied to us and deceived us into thinking our wages were income within the meaning of the laws so they could plunder our labor. They've destroyed the independence of the courts, and most religious leaders have crawled in bed with the politicians in deceiving the people into thinking it was their Christian duty to pay income tax on their labor. And they've twisted Scripture to help the labor cannibals. Perhaps this is the fulfillment of prophecy. And the churches are the great whore of Revelation that commits fornication with the kings of the earth. The politicians want power over the people's labor, thereby reducing the people to slavery. And the churches crawl right in bed with them and twist Scripture to help the politicians. Praise Jesus. So I don't want to be a liberal or a conservative if this is today's way of thinking. I'll embrace the spirit of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Beecher Stowe, William Lloyd Garrison, William Channing, and all the others who spoke out against slavery in their day. Are you willing to join me, even though the truth be bitter? I declare myself an abolitionist. We must enforce the 13th Amendment and restore the right to free labor, or this country will go to hell, and we'll be selling our children and grandchildren down the river. The Democrats and most Republicans won't do this. After all, they're the ones who've taken our right to free labor away. And they have the audacity to tell us that we're free. Lincoln said that most politicians are, taken as a mass, at least one long step removed from honest men. I would have to agree with old Abe. So it's time to vote for candidates from other parties. Hell, people, what have you got to lose? If Congress has an 85% disapproval rating, then get rid of the Democrats and Republicans. For example, vote for the Libertarians and Constitution Party candidates. Trump, now he's the rebel of the Republican Party this election cycle, and I like the fact that the man isn't bought and is funding his own campaign and wants no compensation for being president. His tax plan is definitely a step in the right direction towards restoring the people their right to a free labor market. I think forming a new party might be a good idea that's dedicated to restoring the right to free labor. And let's call it the Free Labor Party. Not a party of liberals or conservatives, but of abolitionists. Yes, I'm angry. And if you love liberty and your country, you should be angry too.